Georgia 43, Ole Miss 35. I got to call this a four-chali game. I mean, I applaud with the paper pops. You got to cut the head off the snake. It's the number one rule about Georgia football on this show. We try and preach it over and over and over again. It does not matter how vulnerable they look. It does not matter how gettable Georgia looks. It does not matter how off their vintage pace they may look. You have got to take the snake and cut the head off. Just clean cut. Or else it's going to continue to bite you. And it looked for all the world like Ole Miss was en route to doing it yesterday, except they didn't. They hit it with the shovel, but it was an uneven, and they didn't quite hit it flush, and there's Georgia just biting you in the end. It's a reminder of what I admire so much about Kirby Smart. Many, many things I admire about Kirby. One of the most important things is they are so comfortable no matter what uncomfortable position you put them in. Old school Kirby Smart Georgia teams want to suffocate you, and they're very comfortable playing these defensive slugfest, and that is just not the MO of this team this year. And to be honest, that's kind of not the direction college football has gone. And you've got your depth edge that's evaporated a little bit, so you can't just roll out second stringers that are going to go on to play on Sunday. Some third stringer is going to go on to play on Sunday. So what do you have? Well, you got two situations already this year where you've had to outscore somebody. You had to do it in Neyland against Tennessee, and yesterday you had to do it. Because if you were to have told me Friday that Ole Miss was going to score 5 straight touchdowns to start this game and still lose, I would have been pretty beside myself. I would have done the math, and I would have said 35 points. I mean, mathematically, I think Georgia can still score enough, but whew. Now, I will say this. Going back and watching this game, I think there was a lot of criticism of the defensive game plan here from Kirby and Glenn Schumann. I think they knew what they were doing, which is a shocker, I know. I just think they put together a game plan that demanded a game of the year performance from Gunnar Stockton, and they got it. So they knew, man, with the way they played Ole Miss, they knew, number one, we're going to take away the run, which they did. Ole Miss had 24 carries for 88 yards. That's a season low for them. They were going to trade off giving Ole Miss some stuff underneath, and they did, and Ole Miss got theirs. And you're probably going to give up some scores when you do that, but you're going to make them sustain drives. You're going to limit the possessions. But in turn, you got to have your quarterback go off. And, buddy, he was 26 of 31 for 289, another 59 on the ground. He had 5 touchdowns, 84% completion percentage. And think about a Georgia fan watching that less than 24 hours after they watched Carson Beck toss 4 picks for Miami. Had to be a very, very weird fever dream, I know. But Georgia also ran it 49 times for 221 yards. So it was a very high-scoring game, but in the end, what I said in the game preview kind of played out. It was one of those we are Georgia moments. It was one of those, we just got to remind you sometimes who we are and what we do. Now, in the past, that would have meant Ole Miss just gets completely crowbarred. Well, that's not this Georgia team. But what this Georgia team can still do is they can still rectify the areas that they needed to. So take yourself back to spring. Again, woo, 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 rewind button. We'll get back to the video 1 second. Do me one quick favor. Look down. Make sure you're subscribed. Most of you are. If you're not, please do so. It's the way we keep the channel free, we keep the videos coming, and we get to do college football year-round as God intended. All right, as promised, back to the video. The 2 things that Georgia's season would hinge upon. What did we say? Number 1, they were not all that great defensively last year, stopping the run. Well, they held Ole Miss under 100 in this game. And number 2, they themselves could not run the ball worth anything last year. Well, they ran it for 221 yards in this game. Plenty good enough, as it turns out. I've been waiting for more tight end involvement from them, by the way. And yesterday, Lawson Lucky had as many catches in this game as he had all season. And Oscar Delp, I think, had 4 as well. So that's wonderful. But this drive chart's wild. Field goal, touchdown, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown, field goal, kneel. Is that right, Jesse? They scored on every drive. Pretty efficient. Pretty efficient. Are we trashing Mike Bobo today, or are we going to let it slide today? We're going to let it slide this week. Okay, I'm being told I'm being told Bobo can stay another week. Okay, all right, good from Mike. Every touchdown drive was over 65 yards, by the way. This wasn't a Texas situation. Texas had one touchdown yesterday. It was like 7 yards. No, Georgia did it the harder way. Not the hard way, the harder way. Ole Miss actually, I thought, halfway validated themselves yesterday. I say halfway intentionally. That wasn't just a filler word. The offense scaled versus Georgia. So that's always good. They haven't played quality competition yet, and especially on the road, all due respect to Kentucky. But going into Georgia was kind of where you were going to get a lot better test of Trinidad Chambliss, and you were going to get a lot better test of this team. Even if it wasn't a vintage Georgia team, it's still Kirby Smart. It's still playing him in Athens. And Trinidad Chambliss played very well. And Georgia took away the run and still needed 40 to beat you. So it's not going to look perfect against Georgia. It never does. I thought they validated themselves. Here was the problem. It goes back again to spring. See, a lot of you watch the show during the season, but what you don't know is we do the show year-round, and you're not wasting your time watching the show in the spring because as sure as we talked about Georgia, we talked about Ole Miss too. And we said there's certainly going to be defensive regression here. The question is not if they regress, it's how much. Well, we're starting to have our answer. They were 14th in total defense last year. To this point, they are 66th in the country. They're a dangerous team because they can score. They're a vulnerable team because they can be scored upon, and that's not the only team in the SEC I could describe like that right now. Their season, though, at Ole Miss, I think hinges on the same thing it hinged on last year, Kentucky. Now, you may think to yourself, that makes no sense. They already played Kentucky. Yeah, I know. And at this point last year, they had already played Kentucky, and they lost, which meant every subsequent loss was all the more detrimental. Well, they scratched out a win over Kentucky this year. And because of that, yesterday doesn't kill them. Now think about yesterday within the context of having lost to Kentucky. Imagine if that was your second loss, second conference loss as well. Whole lot different world, isn't it? So I think Ole Miss is still a playoff team this year. Now they got to take care of business, but I think they're still a playoff team because of the Kentucky game. Georgia's in a really good spot. They got third best odds to win the conference right now. Ole Miss, fifth best odds for the record. Alabama, Texas A&M, Georgia, Texas. In that order, FanDuel cannot quit Texas, no matter how hard they try. They have not watched the Kentucky game yesterday, by the way. So Georgia's 4-1 in the SEC right now. Their remaining conference opponents, remember their schedule's a little different. They got Florida, interim head coach. They got at Mississippi State, and then they got Texas in Athens on November 15th, and then they're done with conference play. They got Charlotte and Georgia Tech, final 2 weeks. Just got to peak at the right time. Just got to peak at the right time. Remember, I know this Georgia team looks far from dominant, far from invincible. Ohio State lost 2 games in the regular season last year and got red hot. And then they were unbeatable. Get hot, stay healthy, and then peak at the right time.